Recorded.
There are certain passages in the Torah, specific passages, that are read more than once a year as we go through our cycle of Torah reading. These passages have been picked out because they denote a very specific situation, and the rabbis who put this together about 1,000, 1,200 years ago, 800 years ago, whatever it was, felt that they were important enough to do twice. One such portion comes Deuteronomy chapter 25, the end of chapter 25, which is typically read in the summer. We will be coming to that maftir in about 6 weeks or so, when we read Shabbat Zachor. Shabbat Zachor means the Sabbath of remembrance. It is the Shabbat right before Purim, and it contains the commandment to wipe out the Amalekites. Why such a drastic action, and why right before Purim? 2 reasons. The Amalekites were a band of marauders that had no respect for human life. As Israel was moving through the desert, they waited until they had passed, and they attacked the end of the train, which contained mostly women, children, and older people that were lagging behind. No regard for human life. It is read in its regular time in Deuteronomy around summer, and it is read about a week before the Shabbat before Purim, because Haman, who also plotted to kill the Jews, they thought was an Amalekite. Now, there are 613 commandments in the Torah, give or take, and I say give or take because, rabbis have different opinions on what those 613 mean. Is this one commandment? Is it 2? Is this 2? Okay? But there are some commandments that we just don't do anymore. We can't. The commandments to do the offerings in the temple. There's no temple, which leaves out about 200 and some odd commandments. What about the Amalekites? What happened to them? Well, 3,500 years ago, we're supposed to wipe them out. That's what God said. Wipe them out. Leave no trace. Blot them out. That's the translation. Blot them out. Well, if they had been blotted out, then about 1,000 years later, Haman would not arise to also try and kill the Jews. So apparently they weren't all blotted out. But in Purim, what happened at the end? The Jews were able to get permission from King Ahasuerus to do away with Haman and Haman and his cohorts. So, since we don't have a temple, what do we do with those commandments? The rabbis got together when they put together what we now call Judaism, when they put together the Holy Scriptures about 2,000 years ago, when they redacted the Talmud about 500 years later, and they said, okay, let's adapt it to modern times. Does the commandment, and it is a commandment, to blot out the Amalekites, is there a modern ability to do that? A modern application? Well, you might want to say that 90 years ago, another bunch of Amalekites arose in the form of Nazi Germany. And we wiped them out. The world went to war, and for some of the leaders of the Nazis that got away, Israel got together, they sent spies out, and they captured a lot of those people that led the Holocaust, and they executed them. Spoiler alert, this is where it gets controversial, and you know where I'm going with this. October 7th, 2023. Hamas, perhaps the modern version of Amalek, broke into Israel, killed women and children, and people that were not able to defend themselves because they never thought they were going to defend themselves. This was premeditated, it was planned, and they spared absolutely no humanity on what they did. Are we bound by Torah to blot out Hamas completely? Is that a modern application of this commandment? Now, you've all probably been following the news. Israel has just agreed to a ceasefire to allow hostages to come home, which is great. None of us do not want those hostages home, all of them. Spare no expense. In return, and we're not getting all the hostages back, we're only getting 33 for now. In return, Hamas is getting 2,000 prisoners, security prisoners. Security prisoners means that they are terrorists who have been convicted of terrorist crimes and they are going free. Now, let me put that in perspective for you. A few years ago, a similar event happened. Palestinian prisoners, Gazan prisoners, Hamas prisoners were released. Among those released was Yahya Sinwar. Who knows if the next Yahya Sinwar is due to be released? Now, in Israel, I am not related to any hostages. Maybe I'd be feeling differently, but I think we all understand how they feel. They want their loved ones back. And it's probably a sure bet that a lot of these people are not alive. They're just going to get the remains so they can bury them properly. Why is Israel doing this? Why is Israel succumbing to perhaps world pressure to do this? There is historic precedence. As I was thinking about this today, I was reading an article from the Free Press, which is put out by somebody named Barry Weiss. Some of you may know who she is. She is a media journalist. She was working as an opinion writer for the New York Times and decided she couldn't take it anymore, so she developed her own blog. She was bat mitzvahed at the Tree of Life Synagogue in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. And she has guest columnists wrote, and this one guy writing a few days ago, I think his name is Matty Freeman, said exactly what I'm saying today. And he said, why is Israel doing this? There's precedent. About 2,000 years ago, a famous rabbi said, we need to prize life above all else. This is when Christians and Muslims were kidnapping Jews for the sole purpose of holding them hostage to get a ransom. If you read the Torah, it specifically says, if your brother or sister is in debt and is sold as a slave to a foreign personage, you do whatever you have to do to redeem them. If you have to go into debt yourself with your own people to do it, you do it. And this is probably the format, the platform that the state of Israel is using. Now, of course, there were two people on the Security Council that didn't vote for him, Ben-Gvir and Smotrich, two very, very right-wing people that even threatened to leave the government, which basically would leave Netanyahu not in power. But the Security Council voted to go for the deal. It's a ceasefire. It's in 4 stages. You can tell by my attitude I'm not happy about this. I basically support Israel 110%. If they all agree to do this, I say do it. And Matty Freeman in his article said exactly the things that we are thinking about now. What's the trade-off? What do you do with this? Do you allow the hostages to suffer and be killed, knowing that if you do this deal, in the future, there are going to be more hostages that are going to be taken by people you're releasing that are going to go through the same thing? Or does Israel have a trick up its sleeve? Does Netanyahu maybe have an inkling that Hamas is not going to comply with the terms and that'll give him his out to keep fighting? But through all this, here's what I'm thinking. Any other country in the world, we've all thought this, any other country in the world gets attacked like that, and it is defeat, it is surrender, it is white flag. It's what we did in World War II. It's what we did in World War I. It's what we did in the Civil War. Mexican-American War. War for independence. We defeated the British. That's how we have a country. That's what Israel did in 1948. That's how they have a country. They have a ceasefire, they have an agreement. Let me take this one step further. We're all familiar, I think, with the story of Balak. Balak was a warrior who was, I want to say conscripted, but that's not the right word. He was tapped to be the leader of the Moabites and the Midianites because they saw Israel, the next generation, moving through the desert, the wilderness, basically, and this is the next generation. This is the generation after the ones that left that died off. And they were defeating everybody. And they got worried. And they turned to Balak. And they said, do something. We'll make you king. And Balak says, you're fighting the wrong war. They have a prophet. We need a prophet. He sends for his buddy Balak from Mesopotamia, a wizard whose specialty of prophecy was knowing what time of the day God was judging people. And it was an opportune time to curse people because they were at their spiritual weakness. Now we all know that God intervened and Balak didn't succeed, and that's how we get Matovu. That's the third curse that became the blessing. What happened this time? We had the European Union, and I know I'm going out on a ledge here. Did the European Union tap the International Court of Justice? Was that the modern day Balaam coming to curse Israel? Maybe it was, maybe it wasn't. Maybe I'm reaching here. I make it a point not to get political, because I know that everybody's got different opinions and I respect them, and I do. But for me, my support for Israel is uncompromised. Israel must survive. I know that we have to be an example to the world and seek peace, even when the world doesn't respect it or listen or appreciate it. That's taking the high road. I have to believe, and I do believe, that with all this going on, Israel is going to come out on top, one way or another. Maybe they're using this time to shore up their security, knowing that there's another attack imminent from Hamas and Iran. Could be. And they're going to be prepared. I have to believe that. And while they're doing that in their country, we are doing something, and I love the word that was coined, it's called lawfare. With these people suing colleges and groups that are ignoring Jews, all this DEI stuff, DEI except Jews. And they're saying no. Title, and I keep getting confused what number it is. What is it, 6 or 8? You know, the equality one, the title, right? That everybody's entitled to fair treatment. Okay? We're winning that war. We're going to win. God's behind us. God sees what we're doing. God sees that we prize life enough to consider putting ourselves in danger to get those people free before more harm comes to them. That's who we are. And that is why we will succeed. That is our strength. Going high doesn't mean being a victim and complaining. It means being strong enough to withstand the evil that's perpetrated because you take a moral and ethical road. And I believe that's what Israel is doing, and that's what we need to do. And that's what we're going to do. We're going to overcome this. We shall overcome. Martin Luther King Day is Monday. We shall overcome. We will. We will defeat one way or another. Think about that. Hope for it. Pray for it. Do what you can to support Israel and your brothers and sisters here in this country. And I'll leave it there. Thank you.